Hello, everyone. My name is CJ Werner, and this is my final project, a deep dive of the contemporary Gothic. So, our objectives for my presentation today is to fully understand what contemporary Gothic is, be able to tie contemporary Gothic into other subgenres of Gothic literature, and summarize and recognize a contemporary Gothic novel and the Gothic elements within it. So, contemporary Gothic, it draws on the traditional Gothic elements seen in classical novels such as Frankenstein and Dracula. However, contemporary Gothic takes these older formulas and filters them through a modern lens so the reader nowadays can relate to it more than a novel written back in the 1700s. Contemporary Gothic writers apply current fears and anxieties society may have today to help build their Gothic narrative. Some contemporary Gothic examples are The Boatman's Daughter by Andy Davidson, which is a really good book written in 2020, I want to say. It's either 2019 or 2020. I confuse the dates, but very good book, contemporary Gothic. Another one is my favorite movie of all time, Corpse Bride, released in 2005. I mean, one of the most Gothic animated movies of all time, with things such as death and the undead and things like that. And then probably the most recent example that I can think of is The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is a play on the classic Dracula novel and how it focuses much more on that last trip of the Demeter that isn't talked about much, but it's kind of the stepping stone to Dracula getting to England and starting that whole story in the original. So those are some contemporary Gothic examples. One that I want to focus on right now, and the one I specifically chose to do my whole project on, was The Hollow Ones by Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan. Chuck Hogan is a well-known and well-respected suspense novelist. He dives much more into the thriller side of things. And then Guillermo del Toro, obviously, is a well-known, well-respected fantasy filmmaker with things such as Pan's Labyrinth and movies like that. It mixes a bunch of different Gothic tropes and some subgenres within it. It doesn't just fit into one subgenre, and we'll go into that in a second. But the whole story mostly revolves around FBI agent Odessa Hardwick. So here's just a quick summary. You don't have to read it all. I'm going to read it. But so Odessa Hardwick, who we talked about earlier, is a FBI agent who, with her partner Walt Lepo, are called to apprehend a rampage murderer. And after having killed the suspect, Lepo turns and attacks Odessa. This forces Odessa to turn her gun and kill her partner. And when she does, she thinks she notices a strange, shadowy figure escape Lepo's body and run off into the night. This sends her into a spiral where she's questioning everything. And to regain her sanity after the tragic event, she accepts a low-level job that leads her to meeting Hugo Blackwood. Hugo is seen in public as a deranged lunatic who just kind of walks the street. But in reality, he's a 450-year-old mage who hunts the Hollow Ones. This confirms Odessa's belief that she saw something leave her partner's body after he died, because Hugo describes to her that the Hollow Ones are these demonic figures that possess people's bodies and make them kill as many people as they can before they are killed themselves, and they will then leave that host body and go bodyjack another person, and the cycle thus repeats. Odessa joins Hugo on a hunt for the Hollow Ones to save the people of Earth, because the Hollow Ones cannot be killed, they can only be trapped, and that is what Hugo is trying to do to save the people of Earth. And while on the hunt, they meet retired FBI agent Earl Solomon, who is the best character in the book because he actually has character. And this is where the novel splits into two different storylines. One focused on Odessa in the current day, and another of Earl Solomon, who worked with Hugo back in the early 60s when he was sent down to Mississippi to investigate something similar to what Odessa is dealing with now, where he was sent down to investigate the lynching of a white man, but it seemed very cultish and kind of supernatural. But then the lynching, which I thought was going to lead to a really good subgenre and, pull on racial threads and see where that goes, it kind of took a backseat to just this possessed child who's repeating Solomon's name and leading him to the Ku Klux Klan. And it kind of takes this weird supernatural turn instead of focusing on what I think would have been a really good thing with the racial undertones. But I digress. Each of their stories then tie back to the Hollow Ones, and one figure in particular is Obadiah, who is the final free Hollow Ones. There are 4 Hollow Ones left. 3 of them have been entrapped, and he is trying to wreak havoc and try to free his other Hollow Ones. He is the leader of the Hollow Ones, who is determined to destroy humanity. At the end of the novel, Odessa and Hugo battle Obadiah and honestly are getting their butts kicked when a character who we met in one scene in the middle of the book shows up and saves the day and ends up entrapping Obadiah. And if the ending of the summary is disappointing, I did that on purpose to replicate how I felt when actually reading the book itself. But anyways, moving on. 2 of the subgenres that I want to talk about in this contemporary kind of lens is urban and southern gothic. Within the Hollow Ones, both the urban and southern gothic subgenres arrive. When following Odessa and the present-day storyline, the book falls into the urban subgenre because it takes place in New York, New Jersey. And when it focuses on Solomon and his 60s storyline, it is much more in the southern subgenre. Urban, much like many other urban gothic stories, focuses on the big city and the bad things that happen in the shadows and things like that, while the southern subgenre part focuses a lot on slavery and racism and traditional beliefs, like many other southern gothic stories, for a moment before, like I said, it tails off into this supernatural type of thing. It doesn't really focus on the racial part as much as it could have. Some gothic elements in the Hollow Ones by Guillermo del Toro, just the normal ones, supernatural beings, obviously being the Hollow Ones and Obadiah, murder, they call on the rampage murderer at the beginning of the story, and that leads them down a trail of a bunch of other rampage murderers that have been spiking up in the New York, New Jersey area, and then obviously Odessa having to kill her partner. Darkness, the Hollow Ones are these really dark figures, and everything they kind of do is at night, and it's a very weird thing. Mystery, the mystery is built up for a very short time before Hugo just blatantly describes what's going on and everything. So the reader gets a short bit of mystery of like, what are these shadowy figures, before Hugo just straight up says they're demonic figures and this is Obadiah. And then we have a damsel in distress, sort of. Odessa at points, for an FBI agent, is really bad at controlling her emotions. And at certain points, it gets her in trouble where, Hugo has to come and save the day for the most part. But I wouldn't say she's a complete damsel in distress. And then some of the subgenre elements is obviously the racism and the slavery. Well, not really slavery, but the Jim Crow laws and the effect of slavery when talking about Solomon and his storyline, and then the big dark city of New York, New Jersey, the New Jersey area in the Odessa storyline.